All right, so as we transfer in today, over the last week, you have had an opportunity to do ride-alongs. You've had an opportunity to obviously study the material that's in Floor 1-1. Maybe you've had a chance to work with the owner that you work with, or maybe you've had a chance to work with a neighboring franchisee. So what I want to know is, what is the most impactful thing that you have learned in the last week, specifically as it pertains to this business? So, I learned this week that Clemson doesn't have nearly the team that they thought they wanted to have this year. That doesn't have anything to do with this class. So that is what it is. And let's see, Edmund, I will start with you, sir. What's the most impactful thing that you've learned this week?
Impactful thing that I've learned this week is that as I'm perfecting my company story, I'm becoming more confident, and I'm getting to see more and more of the clients. Actually, they're becoming more and more engaged as I get better and better with it.
Fantastic. Leo.
I'm going to have to say the same thing. The biggest thing that I've seen when I've gone on appointments, along with Bear, he's starting to grade me now, is the better I say my story, the better results I get. I mean, the story is really powerful. I'm really amazed.
Good deal. Good deal. Scott Salford.
Yeah, that's the same thing. Working on the story and letting people know who I am. I guess that's what my biggest thing has been, is trying to work on that.
Good. Let's see. How about Jeremy? Jeremy Satterwhite.
Very similar. As I've done a couple of visits with, honestly, friends and neighbors, just as I'm getting more and more familiar with the whole sales process, just feeling so much better about everything. But there's still a ton to learn.
There will be for a long time. There will be for a long time. All right, good. Let's see, Jack Hewitt. What is the most impactful thing that you've learned in the last week?
Let's see. Well, the story is something obviously to go along with that same theme, but then just working on getting that objection and keeping that in the back of your mind to, for the next step, where to jump. Obviously, I need a lot more practice, but that's something that I had not done in my sales experience. Well, somewhat, but still, getting it out of there and knowing it for later, and how to attack it later.
Nice. Let's see, Cody.
Really just to make sure I'm giving my full all in the presentation, as far as like prejudging. Went into a pretty rundown house with she was probably in her late 80s. So to be honest, when I initially walked in, I was kind of like, this probably isn't gonna, work out that well, but ended up getting a sale, and from some LVP. And so yeah, I just had to check myself at the end of that and make sure that I'm going into everyone with the same positive mindset, that no matter what the house looks like, or the person, that it's, at the end of the day, everyone deserves to be treated with the same effort. And yeah.
That is such a powerful lesson. That is such a powerful lesson. Good stuff. Let's see, Mike McPherson.
Yeah, so I was fortunate to be able to participate in the Chicago Co-op 3-day session last week, which, as a new franchisee, was hugely valuable to me, and at least in Mike as well in Chicago. And so many things that I learned. If I had to pick one, we did a secret shop at a few different Airbnbs and local residences, and just seeing firsthand how aggressive the local competitors are with their pricing was more eye-opening than I expected. And it really emphasized the need to, number one, the stuff we're learning here in terms of telling the company story is really key. And then also going in with, different options, but a best price is going to be really critical in a lot of cases too. So
Good, good. Let's see, Mauricio. It's like, there he is.
Yes, I'm sorry.
So what is the most impactful thing that you've learned in the last week?
Never judge the job. Doesn't matter if it's small or big. Don't do that, because that will take you to either a better job, or will take you on another project.
I love it.
Never judge it.
I love it. Guys, as you guys are saying this stuff, I'm just reminded of all the people that I've interacted with just in the last week that forget the things that you guys are learning. So, I mean, I was in it literally last night, yesterday afternoon, with a fairly new franchisee who says, I got this lead for repair and I just canceled the appointment. Well, why? Why would you cancel the appointment? I get it. A repair is not the most fun thing to do. 100%. But how many times can you turn a repair into a full replacement? How many times can you show up and because you showed up and nobody else did, all of a sudden the neighbors are interested in you and this person is singing your praises all over the place. I mean, it's just, I don't know. And what is it? It's prejudging the lead. This is an old house with an old person. They're never going to buy anything. This is a house I don't want to go to. This is a repair lead. I don't want. You start prejudging leads. You start prejudging stuff, and you end up hurting yourself. And you're the only one you hurt. It's amazing to me how quickly people forget that. Yes, Mutu.
On that point, I spoke to the neighboring franchisee, and she gave me a list to book or not to book for the call center, and they had their no repairs.
Sure. Well, you know what? I want to be their neighbor, and I want to take every one of their repairs. I'll do all of them. I'm going to do every one of them, because if they don't want them, I will, and I will turn half of them. I'll turn from repairs into full replacements, which is fine. And even the ones that are small repair, I don't care. I'm going to do the work. I'm going to build the reputation. I'm going to get the 5-star review. I'm going to use that house as a way of getting it to 5 of their neighbors or 5 of their friends. I mean, it's fantastic.
Yeah, probably she was telling me because of the charges associated with the appointment booking, $200.
Right. Sure. I know. I get it. I 100% get it. You paid $200 for that stupid repair job. Well, why wouldn't you run it? You paid for it. Go do it. I mean, maybe you don't even get your $200 back. Okay. But if I can use that as a marketing entry into that neighborhood, or as a way of getting to know our neighbors, why wouldn't I do that? I mean, would you spend $200? Would you spend $200 to get a 5-star review in a neighborhood that you've been trying to get into? Of course you would. Well, then don't look at it as the cost of the appointment. Look at it as the cost of marketing into that neighborhood.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, you got to stop me, or I'm going to get the soapbox out. I mean, I'm already stepping up on it. All right, Mike Ryan, take this away from me. What's the most impactful thing that you've learned this week?
It's diversity of the product, being able to offer a diverse line of products where a lot of people are coming in pricing, using that company story to which establish the legitimacy and what we are to the people.
Good. Carly.
Everybody really actually wants to help you. So I'm generally the person, if somebody's like, oh, I need to do so-and-so, I'll say, oh, I can connect you to this and I can do that. Other people want to do that for you. You just need to ask.
100%. Yep. Julio, what's the most impactful thing you've learned in the last week?
Have quite a few as I'm catching up with all the material. The follow up with the client for me, like even if we don't close, there's a potential to get the business even, after, and following up the reference list, like getting the information for the referrals. That's like like you said, like it's gonna create a reputation, and a lot of the referrals is like that's money. We do a good job and they refer us, like that's
Yeah.
I think there's a couple things like that. That's for me like and you have a number over there that if we return to the house maybe with another new flooring, we put it together another strategy, maybe if they accept us back, like to talk to them, there's a 90% chance of landing the business. So that's like keeping the without being pushy, but being present, like
Yep.
following up.
Yep. Good. There's some statistics I'll have to remember to look for you guys that talk about the power of follow-up. And after like I don't want to misquote it, but if I remember right, after the second follow-up call, 90% of salespeople just quit calling after that. And so for the person that hasn't made a decision after 2 follow-up calls, they still haven't made a decision, 90% of your competition goes away. I mean, it's an incredibly high number. I know I'm misquoting. I'll find the study for you and send it to you. But it's amazing just how quickly other salespeople fall away because, I mean, we get lazy. Mark Baldwin.
Well, this is not necessarily about the sales process, but I went to a tile showcase this last week and taking some of the tile training. There's just a lot to learn there. And so I felt like that was like drinking through the fire hose a little bit, but just all the different methods and underlayments and things I just didn't know that I was able to learn. And there's a lot of helpful people out there, as someone else mentioned. So that was really nice to meet up with some of the vendor reps. And they're like, one guy I was talking to, he's like, "You're brand new. You should call me for anything you ever need." And I love it. We'll definitely do that.
I love it. Let's see, Steve Richardson.
No, I mean, mostly it has to do with the company story and just trying to make it sound like a conversation and not a pitch. And every time I practice it with someone, it seems a little less, just a little easier every time, a little more comfortable. So that's about it.
Good. Let's see. How about Elise?
Yeah, so same as Mike, I was at the Chicago Co-op and we did the secret shopping. But after one of the days, I did a ride along with Donna Teagle, who's an owner in the area. And I think just seeing, she did the sales process that you're teaching us. And I think seeing, and she was awesome. And she was just so much better than the competition. They had almost like no sales process. So it made me feel like if I could be fraction as good, I would still be like light years ahead of who we're competing with.
Perfect. Linda.
Yeah, I think maybe for me, it was just how valuable and helpful the manufacturing reps in the area can be. Spent some time with my shawl rep, and he was just a wealth of information of a variety of different things, from installers to pricing to where to go to get the best price on this locally and that kind of stuff. So just being able to leverage all those people around was really helpful and, good.
Good. Mutu, what's the most impactful thing you've learned in the last week?
Yeah, a couple of things. Actually, my neighbor saw my van and he said what business you're getting into, and I explained him flooring and I gave my business card. He was about to change the flooring and he's considering now for changing his flooring. And I measured his house, and that's the project I showed you yesterday. And we learned a lot in their house.
Good.
And the other thing is, I was surprised by the price difference between the carpet also cost $1 per square feet, and SPC costs almost $1.50 per square feet. It's almost close to the carpet price.
It depends on the product, but yeah. I mean, there are some carpets that are a lot more expensive even than some hardwoods. It just depends on the level of quality and what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah. Andrea.
I think that's all the sales process, especially how you change from one step to the following, like very natural.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
And
Sally?
today I have my first
Oh,
ride
sorry.
along. So yeah, today I have my first ride along. So I am pretty sure it will help a lot.
Nice. Sally?
Well, I am not very tech savvy at all, and I'm going to be the office manager. So this past week, I've been spending more time. I went back and did Salesforce training over again, and it's clicking better.
Good.
So that's big for me. So
good. Let's see. How about Dave Berglund?
Yeah, I learned a couple of impactful things. The first one is kind of transitioning into giving the price and doing that more smoothly, getting to the right page on the tablet before you approach the customer with it, so they're not watching you flip through your tablet. That's a big deal, and doing that more smoothly. And the second big thing is I learned that there are at least a couple people that like to talk more than I do. So
you'll run into them.
Yep.
Good.
You're there.
Good. Let's see. Scott Razoo.
The most powerful thing I learned this week was the power of 3 options. I gave my brother a pitch, and he's a sales guy, and at the end he said that's kind of a nice touch that avoids the how do I get a discount question and preempts the sale. So I guess I took that for granted, but in practice it worked pretty well.
Good. Let's see. How about Karen?
I was also part of that Chicago co-op, so it took a lot of our week and learned a lot of great things. One of the biggest is we are losing a ton on our local pad. We've discovered how much we are overpaying. So met with a new rep this morning for all of us. I'm the merchandising chair, and we're going to get some much better pricing on pad, which will help because that just jacks the price of your proposal a lot.
It really does. It really does. Good. Mike Hudson.
Right. I would say that the presentation we had from David Kirchen last week as part of the marketing from the B2B2C, I thought he gave a lot of really good practical ideas on how you can be more effective at networking, and with this notion of sort of approaching is how can I add value to some of the complementary businesses around our flooring businesses, and this notion of reciprocity. And it's consistent with what I've learned previously about that, but sometimes it's better to be the first mover on being a giver versus somebody who's always the first mover on being the asker.
Good. I love it. Let's see, Zach.
Went to my first BNI meeting this week, and if that's not just a referral thing, that's going to be a great for tips of other small business owners and get you through little problems that they've banged their head up against, and maybe you won't have to.
I love that. Let's see, Mike Baltazar.
Yeah, riding around with Janet. I mean, she's run into some pretty oddball appointments with some technical things that need to be worked out. So just understanding that you can reach out to, the reps and get some technical advice, and then also being on those appointments and then going through some of your training, those things popped up in the training as well. So there's a lot of resources. You can slow down and get the information correct. I think that's pretty important.
I love it. Jorge.
Hello. For me, the most important thing was the importance of the sharing with the customer the company history, because if they want to buy from FCI, they only will need one estimate. We won't be competitor there.
I love it. Let's see, Brent.
Okay, so I would say the benefit of being patient. So we did an estimate for a particular commercial location, and we followed up with them, gave them all the information, and they came back and said, you guys were so professional and consistent and communicated openly that we're going to expand the job. And so it went from about a 4,000 square foot job to about a 42,000 square foot job.
You got to like that.
Yes.
I like it. Good. Let's see. How about Max?
Yeah, so we did a trade show this past weekend, and there were quite a few learnings from that. But probably my biggest one was don't get too specific on the product, just get the appointment. Just get in the door. You're not going to do an estimate at a trade show. You're not going to sell anything there. Just get the appointment and sell in the home.
In fact, Max, I could do a trade show for you. I could come to Jacksonville and I would do a great job. I cannot do a trade show for me. I can't do it. And the reason is simple. If I'm in my own territory and I'm talking to somebody, they come up to the booth, hey, what's the difference between laminate and LVP? I feel like I have to answer their questions, right? But if I'm in Jacksonville and I'm standing at a booth for you, somebody asks me, what's the difference between laminate and LVP? You know, I can look at them and say, well, you know, I know there's a lot of variables with all this different flooring, and I'm probably not the right person to answer that question. But, you know, Max knows his stuff, and he can answer that question when he comes to see you. Would it be better for him to see you during the day or in the evening? And I can immediately start booking an appointment. But I can't get away with that if I'm the one that's going to show up at the house. So for me, when I ran shows and events and stuff, I never wanted to stand in the booth. And it's not because I don't want to stand in the booth. It's because I wanted there to be somebody standing there. And I hired a college student that did most of my shows and events so that they could get away with saying, well, you know, I don't really know, but Arlen does. And he can show up and he'll answer all your questions. You want me to book him during the day or in the evening? And then she could immediately just start booking appointments.
It's not a bad idea. I like it.
Let's see.
We're going to the Atlanta home show this weekend to help out. So thanks for saying that, Max, because that's relevant info. Appreciate it.
All right, let's see. Michael Pfefferman.
Say for me, it's not like necessarily a new learning, but reminder and crystallizing of a reminder. It's what can set us apart, what sets FCI apart, I think, in the markets where you're operating well, and what I need to keep focus on is that it's the combination of doing all the little things right that really add up to a distinctive experience for the customer. It's that we are on time for appointments and we give them a time instead of a time window. It's that we are knowledgeable about the products. It's that we have the right samples in our van. It's that we follow up with a proposal quickly. It's like, getting all of these details in concert is really what's going to make a success.
100%. It's 100%. Good. Let's see. How about Liz?
Mine is only kind of adjacently related, I think, to this group, but it's that don't trust the shipping estimates that vendors give you. I have been hitting refresh on the page for like the last 2 weeks. For me, it was the shelving for my mobile showroom coming and just watching it ping pong from like the different hubs that literally it went from just east of me in Sacramento to just west of me in Santa Rosa. And every day I called and I spent so much time talking to the reps. I should have not, because they didn't know anything different than the computer. But every day they promised, oh, it's going to come tomorrow. It's going to come tomorrow. And then the one day they told me it wasn't going to come was yesterday, Tuesday. They were like, oh, someone's going to call you to schedule it. And what happened? This giant truck showed up yesterday. So don't trust what anything says. But I think that's one for me. I have to figure out for the customer side, right? Like, how do I not lose my shit when like something like that just totally blows up my scheduling with an install or something like that? I got to work on that patience piece.
I like it. All right, so I will tell you this though, when you're when you're buying like shelving for the van, you're getting that one time and it's showing up on a common carrier. And so if you're dealing with Yellow Freight's out of business now, but if you're dealing with some of the other LTL carriers, they don't know when it's going to show up. But if you're buying from a Shaw or a Mohawk where it actually shows up on their own truck, you have a much better chance of it showing up when they say it's going to show up. And for that matter, a lot of times you'll end up getting the cell phone number for your regular driver, and it's not that you'll have an agreement with Shaw or Mohawk, you'll have an agreement with Bob, the guy that drives the truck, and he'll call you on his cell phone.
Okay, good. Yeah, that was one that even Bruce was like, yeah, as soon as there's a delivery date, you can be highly confident that's the day it's gonna come. Well, that date came and went. So
not on
that's good.
LTL.
No, that's
Not on
good to know
LTL.
that the other vendors, because that's what I was nervous about, is the cross country shipping and just
Yep.
how that works. So that's good insight into those.
Good. Let's see. How about Bella?
Hi. So I would say like the most influential thing I've learned and most important thing I've learned this week is that not every sale needs to be top dollar and that you can work with the customer, because if you do that, then you have a better chance of getting referrals and moving forward that way.
Good. Good. Let's see. Mommy.
Hi, I'm learning about the company steps from 1 to 11. I'm trying to familiar with it. And also I was learning the company story slide so I can get ready before I face the customer so I know what to talk. So I won't get them confused. So I'm just practicing the steps
Good.
and the company story.
Good.
And one
All
thing
right.
I'm afraid of is I haven't do any ride along, Arlen. I've been calling our neighbor to have any schedule for the DA. We haven't have anything yet. We've been calling every single day, so I haven't do any ride along. I don't know if I'm late or not.
I don't know. I call other ones. I mean, you've got a ton of people around the Dallas area. Pick anybody. Let's see. How about who are we missing? Carla.
I have been really the most well, it's the application, the app. Like now, I'm getting so much quicker after the exercises that I have been doing as well, like catching up. So I have now I feel very confident, like looking at the tablet. I'm working on the Inspired Net than at the beginning of the week.
Good.
So yeah.
All right. Did I miss anyone? I don't think so. I think I got everybody. Okay, good. I am going to first, we're going to do this like 30 seconds or less. I'm not going to spend a ton of time here today. I'll just remind you that this is our last week where we just have a call on Wednesday. Next week, we have calls from Tuesday through Friday. So we'll spend more time on that later in our call so that I can set that up and make sure that our expectations are clear on what next week is going to look like. But for the moment, this is what we've got. So as of right now, this is where we are. And you'll notice if you pay attention, we should have week 4 complete by now. You should have Salesforce complete. So by next Wednesday, all of these should say 100 with the exception of week 2, and week 2 should say 90 because the bug is still there. So as you look across, you can see where you are. And yes, I will send a screenshot of this out today so that you have that. But all of these should say 100 with the exception of, so this is what everybody should look like right here. 100 all the way down except for week 2, which is 90. So that tells me that Zach is 100% finished with the online stuff. Then as I scroll across to the design associates, just a little bit further to pick up everybody. Here we go. So again, if you see that you are moving along and making great progress, so Wendy's here, everything's done. Bella's here. Not everything done, but it's okay. You've got a little bit of time left you're basically right on track. You've got all of this done for 4 weeks, and then there's the stuff for next week, which is a much shorter section, and finishing out Salesforce. So Mauricio's got everything done. Frank's got everything done. You also see some of these fantastic ride-alongs. Dave's 54 ride-alongs, unbelievable. 50 ride-alongs with Brent. That's why he's turning 4,000 square foot jobs into 42,000 square foot jobs. So take a look at where you are. And if you see that you're lagging behind, you've got essentially 1 week to get that stuff caught up. Any questions on this? I'm going to move from this pretty quickly. Okay, good. Then let me transfer to the whiteboard. Okay, let's transfer back here. All right, so I want to start today by just going through a very high level review of where we're at. Okay, so let's say that Max is at that home show and he's met somebody and he's booked an appointment. Or maybe somebody called your office, or maybe somebody came in through the website. They come in through the website and they book an appointment with you. All right, so all I know right now, the only thing I know right now is that I have an appointment on my calendar. This is where we're going to start. I have an appointment on my calendar. As the design associate, as the person that's going to go to the house and try to help this customer pick their perfect flooring, what is the first thing that I want to do now that I have an appointment on my calendar?
Do the warm-up call?
Setup
Yeah.
call.
Yep. I want to do a setup call. All right, so what are the fundamentals of the setup call? First of all, what is my number one goal in the setup call? What am I ultimately trying to do with that setup call?
Stop them from getting other appointments with other companies.
Yeah, it's what I want to get them to stop Googling. Right? I want to somehow get the customer to feel so comfortable with me that they quit Googling other people and quit making appointments with other people. Okay. So now what are some of the keys? What are some of the things that I want to do during the setup call to make it so that they feel very comfortable with me?
Well, you want to introduce yourself, talk to them about their project, get as much information as you can, get them excited about what you have to offer. You want to make sure anybody that's going to help in decision making is there.
And I'm not going to use, I agree with you, but
You're not going to use decision maker. Yeah.
Yep. I'm not going to use the word decision maker. I'm going to use the word input, right?
Yes.
Good. Okay. All right. So that's the basics of the setup call. Perfect. What's next? What's next?
Warm up at the appointment?
Yeah. I'm going to drive to the appointment. Let's see if I can drive to the appointment. This always goes horribly wrong. That one's not too bad. All right. So now I'm going to drive to the appointment and we're going to do a warm up. Okay. So what is the purpose of the warm up? What am I trying to do in the warm up?
The icebreaker.
Yeah. All right. So Mike, what do you mean by icebreaker?
Just establish more of a comfortable rapport with the customer, talking about, not necessarily the project, usually not talking about the project, but more looking for anything in the neighborhood to talk about, or if you can see pictures of like kids or dogs or pets or sports or something like that to, just establish some rapport.
Good. I like that. Okay. All right. So the setup call is there. Now warm up, we call this step one. Okay. So that's good. Step one. What is the next step?
Transition out of the foyer.
Yeah, I'm going to get there, right? So what is the next step? The next step is where I do my inspection. Okay, but this transition, where this transition back here, you know, this transition back here was all about driving from one place to the next. How am I going to transition from the warm up to the inspection? Well, this is where I'm going to use those. That's why we call them transition questions. Right? So this is where I'm going to ask those questions. So I've had a chance to warm up. I've had a chance to talk about family vacations. We've talked about hobbies. We've talked about all kinds of wonderful things. I've really gotten to understand who this person is and what motivates them to spend money and where they spend their time and all this wonderful stuff that we've learned about in the warm-up, right? And so for me, I just like to put a fence around the warm-up and say, the warm-up is all about the person. The warm-up is all about the warm-up. But now as I'm moving to step 2, I want to move the customer along a path. It's almost like, in my mind, I think of taking a 6-year-old kid by the hand and I'm going to walk them across the street. I'm going to take the customer metaphorically by the hand. I'm not going to actually hold their hand, but I'm going to take the customer by the hand and I'm going to walk them down this path of making a decision. Okay. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to ask these transition questions. So to move from the warm up to step 2, in order to make this transition, how do I start the transition questions?
I'm going to ask them how long they've been thinking about replacing their floors.
Yeah, how long? All right, so Edmund, let me ask you this. No matter what answer they give you, 2 weeks, 6 months, 12 years, does that matter to you?
No.
Not right now, it doesn't.
Not right now. What matters to me is transitioning to my next question.
Yep. Okay, so what's your next question?
What made you decide to buy your floors from me today?
Okay, so how long have you been thinking about replacing your floor? What made you decide to do it today?
Well, I'm trying to get that word I'm looking for here.
Objection.
Objection. Thank you. Trying to get that objection.
Okay. All right, I'm trying to get that objection. What am I going to do with it?
Well, it depends what the objection is. If they tell
All
me
right, tell me more about that.
Well, if they tell me that they're just shopping around and trying to get some quotes, I've got my objection, and now later on I'm going to use that. I'm going to go do my inspection at that point.
Okay. All right, good. So I'm trying to get an objection. And once I get an objection, then I'm going to simply move along to inspect the space. Okay. So tell me about the fundamentals. Anybody, tell me about the fundamentals of this inspection. What am I trying to do with this inspection?
You're trying to point out what they said the issues were and highlight them to bring it to their attention so that they want to move forward more quickly because they see the problem.
Okay.
It's their decision, right?
Yeah. All right. So I want them to take some ownership in the problem. Good. What else?
To generate that sense of urgency.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
And like you said, creating the video will give them, like, looking at the video will make them realize, okay, yeah, that's true. We need to do it.
Okay. All right. So that gets into the video, but just walking around the space with the customer, right? This inspection piece is all about, I'm walking around the space with the customer. So what am I trying to do? Yeah, sure. I'm going to show myself as an expert, but don't think so much about textbook. Think about, what am I trying to do with the customer here?
It's gonna help identify the problem, like the issue that the customer need to change their floors.
Yeah, I want to figure out what is the issue, right? So, mommy, what could be an issue? Make it up.
For example, a customer want to change their carpet, means they have a little wrinkle or bugs, or the color is different. So you want to make sure you point it out and so they can see it.
Okay, but they're probably showing it to you, right? I mean, they're telling you, hey, look, I don't like this because the floor is wrinkled. I don't like this because the floor is stained. I don't like it because it's the wrong color, right? So I want to find out what is the customer's issue, right? What is it the customer's issue? That sounds like now we're doing psychology. No, we're not doing a counseling session. What is it that the customer is trying to solve, right? Okay. What else am I doing in this step 2? What do you think?
Ask the customer to reach out referrals.
Yeah, I'll get to that. But in the inspection, this step 2 is so important. What information do I need from the customer?
Why they want to change the carpet? Maybe it stink or they don't like the color.
Okay, yep. So that's the issue, right?
You want to find out what they're looking for. What do they want?
Yeah, and what do you want? Okay. So I think of step 2 as what's here currently and what's the future going to look like. Okay. Step 2 is so important because in step 2, this is where we get the customer to dream a little bit with us, right? The first thing that we have to do is get the customer to verbalize, this is what's wrong with today. This is what I don't like about today. And then ask really good questions for the customer to be able to say, this is what I want my new floor to look like. Okay. This is also when, now I'm thinking a little bit ahead. I'm thinking about how we're going to write the proposal. This is when I'm starting as the technician, as the expert, I'm starting to look at things and I'm starting to see, okay, do we have baseboards? Do we have quarter round? Am I going to need transition pieces? I'm already starting to look ahead at, I see we have carpet. What is the subfloor? There's a great big grandfather clock that's in this room that I've got to be able to move out, right? So I'm starting to notice all these little details. I'm starting to pick up on all this observational stuff that I need to know. But from the customer, what do I need to hear? What do you hate about what you have today? And what do you want your new floor to look like and feel like? And how do you want it to last? Okay. Yep. Does that make sense? Right? Now, here's the trick about step 2, okay? And everybody at one point in time or another, everybody falls prey to this. What product in the van do you want to sell?
Most expensive one.
Yeah. Okay. I thank you for being honest. Okay. So more than likely, you're going to want to sell the most expensive thing that's in the van. What do you actually have a realistic chance of selling?
The least expensive?
Not necessarily the least expensive.
The one that matches the value that they need.
Exactly. Say that again. Say that again, Mark.
The one that matches the value that they need.
Bingo. So you're trying to figure out, as you're asking questions, you're trying to figure out from the customer, what is it that they want and need? Are they looking for something higher end? Are they looking for something lower end? Are they looking for something in the middle? Do they have kids and family and dogs and cats? And what is it that they're trying to solve? What is the issue that they're trying to deal with? And do you have a product that will solve their issue? What colors are they looking for? What style are they wanting? Are they wanting warm colors or cold colors? This whole step 2, this is really where you really have to listen. You have to be able to ask really good questions, and you have to be able to listen for what is it that the customer wants. And you have to put your own biases aside. I know what I like. I know what I want in my house. That doesn't necessarily mean that every house in Columbia should have what I want. All right, so how do I move from step 2 to step 3? So step 3 is what? This is where we're going to measure the job. And we're going to do an estimate. And I'm going to call this my rough draft. All right, but how do I get from step 2 to step 3?
You ask the customer to do you a favor and look at the call the references.
Yeah, so here's where my reference list fits in. Okay, here's where my reference list fits in. All right, so as I think about the inspired sale, and as I think about how to make this thing flow and make it feel really natural, I have steps and I have transitions to get from one step to the next. I have a step and I have a way that I'm going to get to the next thing, right? So let's go back for just a second. How do I transition from the setup call to the warm-up? Well, I drive to the house. I've done a warm-up, and the warm-up is all about the person, and I've done a great icebreaker. And now in order to move from the warm-up to step 2, I'm going to transition the customer by asking some questions. How long have you been thinking about replacing the floor? What made you decide to do it today? Oh, really? What makes you say that? All right, good. So now let's go take a look at the space. I look at the space with the customer and I ask really good questions. What do you love about the current product? What do you hate about it? What makes you want to change this? What would you want your future project to look like? What would you want this space to look like when we're all said and done? These step 2 questions are all, it's feeding me information so that I know what it is that the customer is looking for. Now, how do I tell the customer, okay, I'm done with that, I'm ready to do something else now? Well, would you do me a favor? So now I'm going to give them the reference list and let them call the reference list while I move on to measuring and estimating the space. It flows so nicely when you've got those transitional pieces in there that you can use to help move you from one to the next. Yeah, Mike.
Hey, Arlen, regarding the reference list, I'm sure you've covered this, but with us being new and not having a bunch of references out of the gate, any recommendations on how we handle that piece of it?
Yeah, so let me do this. I want to go ahead and answer that question when we're here, right? So let's just take the reference list down here. List if you're new. Okay, so one way that you could do it is you could get your, let's say, your old work colleagues. All right, this is what I did when I started. I went back to people that I had worked with for years. And I left a company, I left a job, and I started the business, and I said, look, guys, I'm going to have some people call you. They're going to call you asking for a reference. I don't want anybody to lie for me. So if they ask you what kind of floor I did for them, you tell them they didn't do it. He didn't do a floor for me. Okay, I don't want anybody to lie. I'm not asking anybody to lie. But I changed the questions at the bottom of the reference list so that instead of saying, did Floor Coverings International do everything they said they were going to do? Did they clean up? Would you choose them again? I changed the questions at the bottom of the page and I said, is Arlen somebody that you would trust to manage a project for you? Okay, good. They've seen me manage projects before. Is Arlen somebody that if you had a flooring project, he's somebody that you would consider to come do the project for you? Right, so I just changed the questions at the bottom. So you could use personal references, you could use old work acquaintances, you could use people that you haven't actually done a floor for, but if you do that, I would say change the questions at the bottom. Okay, so that's one way to do it. Another way to do it, okay, so let's make sure we document this. Change the questions. All right, another way to do it would be to leverage other franchise owners in your area. All right, now they may do this, they may not do it, but maybe they've got a reference list that you can use. Maybe they have a list of customers that you can go follow up with. If you're in an area where the co-op is pretty tight and people are open to doing that, then great, because at the bottom of the list, it doesn't say, did Mike McPherson do what he said he was going to do? It says, did Floor Coverings International do what they said they were going to do, right? So it's a valid reference because it's a reference on Floor Coverings International. It's not a personal, at that point, it's not a personal reference of you, okay? Now, for the design associates on the call, you guys have a huge benefit. And I would say for Max and for Mike that are buying existing territories, you guys have a huge benefit because you can go back and do what I like to call quality checks. All right, what are quality checks? So design associate, let's see. Leo gets a list of some of Bear's recent customers. Okay, Bear's franchise owner out in Nevada. Leo's his design associate. Leo gets with Bear and says, "Hey, can you give me a list of design associates that you did? I mean, of customers that you did work for, let's say 5 or 6 months ago."
Okay. And he actually already has done that.
I love it. All right. So then Leo calls these people from 5 or 6 months ago and says, "Hi, I'm with Floor Coverings International, and we're ready to do your 6-month quality check." Well, what the heck is that? Well, it's about 6 months after we do a job, we like to stop by and just make sure that everything's doing what it's supposed to do. Oh, well, you don't have to do that. You know, the carpet's fine. Oh, no, it's part of our requirement. Trust me, it'll only take me 5 minutes to do. It'll be really quick. I'll be in and out. So Leo shows up at the door. People are absolutely floored by the fact that somebody came to look at their carpet 6 months later. I mean, nobody does this, right? And now it gives him the opportunity to ask questions. Hey, when Bear did your floor, did he do everything he said he would do? Oh yeah, he did. Well, when they were all finished, because I'm new to the company, did they clean up after themselves? Oh yeah, they cleaned up. Well, if you had another flooring project, would you choose Floor Coverings International again? Oh, absolutely. You guys did a great job. Perfect. Would you mind being one of my references? Okay. And then you're setting it up just like a regular reference list. So I get it in the beginning, it's tough. How many franchisees and design associates across the country do you think actually use the reference list?
%50.
Yeah, I was gonna say 50.
That's probably high.
Oh.
I'm guessing it's probably 15%. So why do you think that very few, I mean, because I think, I don't know, maybe you guys don't see it. To me, I see that the reference list has a huge benefit of letting your customer ask questions to previous customers and to get a chance to see what this process looks like with Floor Coverings International. Why do you think people don't use it if it's such a good tool?
I can say why I might have an issue with it, because if I'm passing out customer info, my past customers are going to get ticked off if they keep getting phone calls.
Well, okay. So what would keep them from continuing to get a bunch of phone calls?
Well, hopefully you could rotate some of your references.
Okay. And so what does it take to rotate references?
Well, you have to have the references, and then you'd have to pull together like a couple different versions of your reference sheet that has a different mix of people, maybe focused on different types of customer situations that you're coming into. Like if it's you're calling on some seniors, having references that might have other seniors on it, or if you have families with young kids, because they have the pictures on that reference sheet template, so you have the opportunity to create some sort of likeness from your potential customer to one of your actual customers.
Absolutely. All right. So I'm going to dig another step. What does it take on your part so that you have a bunch of these different reference lists so that the same reference list doesn't just keep getting called over and over again?
Gotta keep selling jobs.
Well, you have to keep selling jobs, but in addition to that, what else do you have to do?
You have to keep
asking them to be a reference.
You have to keep going back and asking for reference list pictures, right? Okay. So why is it that people don't use the reference list? Because we get lazy. And when we get lazy, what happens? Well, we get lazy, and by lazy, let me just put this in the right context. I know that people work 60, 70, 80 hours a week. So it's not like they're lazy because they're sitting at home watching Oprah. It takes work to get back into a customer's house and get a picture. It takes work to keep a reference list up to date. And you've already got 100 other things that you're trying to do. Okay. So it's not that people are lazy as in they're sitting on the couch. It's just that when it comes to the reference list, they're not willing to put in the work to keep the reference list up to date. And then, Max, people fall into exactly the trap that you just fell into. And that is, well, I don't want the same people getting called over and over again. Okay, but then don't give the same names out over and over again. Keep refreshing the reference list so that you're not wearing people out, right? You're not burning people out. But that takes work. It means that you have to keep your reference list up to date. And you have to keep cycling people in and cycling people out. And that takes work. So I don't know of anyone that would tell you, oh, the reference list doesn't work. I think the vast majority of people would tell you, oh yeah, that's actually a really good tool, but I don't use it. And when you dig hard enough, you realize, well, I don't use it because I don't keep my reference list up to date. Yeah, Jeremy.
I'm just trying to think of time constraints and things like that. Wouldn't it be best to ask for these references at the 10-day walkthrough?
That's exactly when you do it. 100%. That's exactly when you do it. But people get lazy and don't do the 10-day walkthrough. They may call the customer 10 days later and say, is everything good? Everybody's happy? Yeah, we're happy. Hang up the phone and you're done with that one and move on to the next thing, right? And it's that, but you've got to get back to people's houses. You got to be able to see them again. Now there's different tricks. I won't go into everything. There's different tricks that you can do. On the day you sell the job, you could go ahead and take a reference list picture, even though you're not going to use it yet. There's different ways of getting this picture, whatever. We can get into that later. The point is that it's a great tool, okay? And there's ways of getting it, but you have to keep it up to date. Okay, where are we at? So we've used our reference list to get to step 3. What am I trying to do in step 3? What's the main point of step 3?
A rough draft.
That's it, a rough draft, okay? So by rough draft, I mean, I want to put together my proposal using just a price group. Yes, I know tile doesn't have price groups, but everything else does. So, and if it's a tile job, I can just pick a random tile and put it in there for now. I'm going to change it later. It's fine. But I want to use a PG something just to get the proposal put together. That way I can start to make I can start looking at all the things and doing all of my little things. And all I have to do later is just swap it out. No big deal. Okay. So I want to get my rough draft estimate done. Okay. The other thing that I want to do in step 3 is I do want to go ahead and get my inspection video. Now, who is the audience for the inspection video? Who is that video for?
Homeowner.
Yeah, it's for the customer, right? And how long should it be?
No more than 90 seconds.
Yeah, I would say 60 seconds. You could go to 90 if there was a lot going on. You might even go down as low as like 45 seconds. Okay, so this is a really quick video to highlight the most important things in the home. How do you know what the most important things are on this floor?
As the customer told you.
Yeah, the customer told you. Perfect. All right, so what happens after step 3? I've had an opportunity to do a nice warm-up. We walked around the space together. I gave them a reference list, and then I measured and estimated the job. So where am I physically right now? I'm walking around the house measuring. I sit down with the tablet and I do my proposal. Now what am I going to do?
Go to the van.
Good. All right. So, all right, let's see if I can do this twice in one day. All right, we're getting better. Okay, so here I am walking out to the van. Walk out to the van so that I can pick some samples out, right? How many options am I going to build in the tablet?
3.
Okay, so when I put this rough draft together, I'm going to put together 3 options. All right, so let's focus on option 1 for a moment. How many boards do I need to pull out of the van to represent option 1? Remember, option 1, I just have a PG3, right? Or PG2 or PG1, whatever. I've just used the price group as a placeholder. So how many boards do I want to be able to represent option 1?
3 or 4.
3 or 4 boards. Okay. So let's say, for example, just as an example, let's say that I did my option 1, and for option 1, I decided that my strategy was Option 1 is going to be hardwood. So I pull out 3 or 4 boards of hardwood. Option 2, let's say that for option 2, I'm going to do the same project, but I'm going to do it in LVP. Okay. LVP looks like wood. I can get it cheaper than the hardwood, and that might be my option 2. How many sample boards am I going to use to represent option 2?
2 to 3.
Yeah, 2 or 3 boards. Okay, so maybe my option 3, I decided that I'm going to use a laminate as my option 3, because I think I can get laminate cheaper than LVP, and I think this is going to give me a good price gapping. If my option 1 is hardwood, and if they tell me that that's too expensive, well, I've already built an LVP option, I've already built a laminate option. Okay, so I know I've got these 3 sort of ready to go. How many boards am I going to pull out of the van to represent laminate?
3.
Probably 1 or 2.
2.
Okay, probably 1 or 2 boards. All right, so I could theoretically be searching for 9 or 10 boards in the van. Now, I may or may not bring all 9 or 10 boards into the house. I might take, and maybe I take the first 3 or 4 boards and I bring those in, and maybe the other boards I sit on the front seat of the van so they're quick and easy to get to. Or maybe I do bring them in the house, but I leave them in the foyer because I don't really want us to talk about those. Or if the house has a nice front porch, maybe I leave those boards up on the front porch, whatever. I want to be able to get to them quickly, but I don't want them to be the focal point. I want to be able to focus on option 1 to start with. And I know if I bring in 9 boards and put 9 boards down on the floor, we're going to get all kinds of confused. The customer is going to get all kinds of confused. So what I want to do is I want to focus on option 1, but I want to have option 2 and option 3 in my back pocket. And my back pocket might include the front seat of the van. Okay, does that make sense? We're good so far?
Harlan, I assume if the customer said to you, I want hardwood, I'm absolutely sure I want to go to hardwood, hardwood's my thing. Would you suggest then creating a couple of different options with hardwood and bringing some boards in that would be either different prices or some that have more variation in color than others, and same kind of concept, just do them all across different hardwoods?
So this is one strategy, right? All right, well, let's draw out another strategy. Option 1 might be a PG4 hardwood. Option 2 might be a PG3 hardwood. I don't know, PG2 hardwood.
Mm-hmm.
Option 3 might be a PG1 hardwood. And maybe to get my price gapping even bigger, maybe the option 1 includes an area rug. Maybe option 2 includes an area rug. Maybe option 3 is just the hardwood floor. I don't know, but I want to be able to create some price gapping, right? So that it's not just, because if option 1 is, let's say option 1 you come up with is $15,283, and option 2 you come up with and it's $14,912, that's not a big enough gap. It's the same price, right? It's still, both of those are $15,000, right? So I really want there to be a big enough gap here. You know, maybe option 2 is more like, I don't know, $12,999. Okay, well now that looks like a big enough gap to work with. Now when the customer says, well, 15 grand is too much, okay, I've got something that's in the 12 grand range, right? So I want there to be a big enough price gap so that I can actually, when I drop to another option, that the customer sees an actual price difference. Okay. So all this is happening back at step 3. I've gone to the van, I've put together my 3 options. That's great. I come back into the house. I guess we can draw our little house here. Good. All right. So we go back into the house And when I walk back into the house, what is my next step?
Story.
Yep. So I'm going to get to the company story, but how am I going to transition into it? Because I don't want to just pop in and say, okay, here's my company story. How do I want to transition into the company story?
You have to have a good lead in, something along the lines of, hey, this is a, really exciting part of my job. I get to show you exactly what I have in my mobile showroom. And then you can use that as your lead into the story.
Yep. Okay. So one thing that's built in is this inspection video, right? And even before that, I can ask them, did you get in touch with anybody on the reference list? Right? So I go out to the van, I pull my sample boards out. I go to the van, I get my little sample boards, I walk back into the house. When I get back into the house, hey, did you get in touch with anybody on my reference list? Oh, you did? That's fantastic. What'd they have to say? Oh, everything was lovely. Perfect. Well, let me show you what I found. Okay, well, now I show you the inspection video. And the thing that I love most about my job, and before you know it, I'm 3 slides deep into the company story. Okay, so just from a flow perspective, I just want you to sort of imagine with me the flow of this and how this is working, right? I've gone out to the van, I've got product, come back in. Did you talk to anybody on the reference list? Great. Bam, here's my inspection video, company story. Let's go to town. Okay, inside the company story, right? So inside that, you also get step 5. So step 4 and step 5 kind of go together. This is where you get your install video. All right, so that's that video that plays in the middle of the company story. Okay, that video is the perfect opportunity for you to ad-lib whatever you need to ad-lib about this project. So at the end, for those of you that have been practicing it, does anybody feel like, at the end of it where you've got the before and after pictures, does anybody feel like that's a little awkward because it just plays without anything happening?
I don't know that I'd call it awkward. I think it could, time-wise, it could seem like it's going on a little bit longer.
Okay. All right. So that installation presentation, that is the perfect chance for you to go into a little bit more detail about how you pick your installers. You can go into a little bit more detail, like if maybe in your state it's required for installers to be licensed. Okay, wonderful. So while these before and after pictures are running, it just gives you an opportunity to say some things nice about your installers. I'm working with Samuel, and Samuel has gone through the 3rd level of tile training towards his license. Or Samuel's been licensed for the last 20 years in tile. And I purposely have picked the absolute best installers to work with to make sure that you're getting the job. So what's happening? In the background, the before and after pictures they're just playing. I don't care. I'm not even talking to those pictures. Those pictures are just playing, and it gives me 20 seconds to be able to leave the customer with a message about the install that I want them to hear. And maybe that has to do with the installers. Maybe it has something special to do with their project. When we walk through the hallway, there's that soft spot in the hall, and I'm not sure exactly what that is, but assuming it's something that we can take care of, we're just going to go ahead and take care of that while we're here. It's just whatever it is, right? There's something that maybe you've seen in the inspection that you can bring out while that part of the video is playing before you jump into the last half of the company story. All right, so what happens after step 5? Well, step 6. And what is step 6?
Showing them the product.
Yeah, now we're going to pick out the product. So what is the goal of doing a product presentation? What is my goal here?
Get the customer to fall in love with one of the products.
Yeah, you said the right word. All right. I'm trying to find a match made in heaven here. Okay. I really, really want the customer to fall in love with the product. What happens if the customer says, well, that'll do? I think that might be all right.
You did not get them to fall in love.
Nope. Oh, that might do in a rush. Nope. I have got to get the customer to fall in love with the product. How can I get the customer to fall in love with a stinking piece of carpet?
Explain all the features and benefits.
Okay, so there might be some of that if that's important to them.
Because you could show them how it completes their vision for what that room or flooring is going to look like, and reference it back into, you know, their vision from earlier.
Yep, I can go back and their vision. Good. What else, Dave?
I was going to say it ties the whole room together, but talk about how it works with the walls, how it works with the stone, how it works with the kitchen cabinets. Just talk to them about what it looks like and point out different aspects of the color that really works well and, you know, looks good in different lighting. Talk about the visual a lot and, you know, get them to see things maybe that,
yeah, exactly. Appeal to their senses.
So the visual talks about how it looks, right?
Yep.
Okay. I want to talk about the texture.
Have them feel the samples.
How does this feel? Okay. I want to talk about the durability. All right. So that's oftentimes, that's where we're going to talk about fab. The features, advantages, benefits. What is this going to do for you? Okay. There's a fourth thing that customers are normally inquisitive about. How is this going to look? How's it feel? How's it going to last? What's normally the fourth thing that people are really concerned about?
How do I
clean it?
Yeah. How do I keep it clean? If you can address those four things with your customer, is this the look you want? Is this the feel you want? Do these features seem like they make sense for your situation? And this is how you can keep it clean. If you can get the customer to connect with those four, they're going to fall in love with the product. Now you have them on the product. So those of you that have done a bunch of ride-alongs, for those that haven't done a bunch of ride-alongs, what are some of the techniques that you've seen in the field, your franchise owners or other design associates using, maybe even from another job? What have you guys seen or done to help your customer fall in love with the product?
The room visualizer helps.
All right, explain what that is, Karen, for those people that have no idea.
It is almost everybody has one now on their website, right? So if you go to Shaw, you take the product, you take a picture of the customer's room, you can insert the product right into their space. So now they can actually see it there. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it hurts, right? It gives you a good idea of the variation. I think is the biggest deal, especially with hard surface, right? Because you see this little square and it's not going to look like what the floor is going to look like down. So you just have to remind the customer the color is the swatch you see right here in real life, but the variation is what the floor will look like. And it helps. We did it yesterday with a customer and she, you know, wanted a gray, but she's like, I have this vision, and I played with the different ones and she's like, that's the vision. Right. So once we found, and then we knew that was the right color and it worked.
Good. Okay. What other techniques have you guys seen?
Yeah, I got to follow up on
bigger
Karen.
Samples.
All right, Max, let me go to Max and then I'll come to Dave.
Karen couldn't be more right. I talked about the trade show earlier. I'm trying to figure out how to put that room visualizer in the trade show with a display. I mean, that thing's magic. A lot of customers haven't even seen that technology. Honestly, I wish we had something on our FCI site that would help them with that, because we're going to the vendor sites and it can be slow, and you just have to have that pulled up on the tablet or your phone beforehand, because that makes a huge difference in the mind of the consumer.
Good. Dave?
Yeah, we've used giving the customer larger samples after they've narrowed it down to, 2 or 3.
Okay. So I'm not opposed to that, but there's a word of caution when it comes to larger samples. If you're telling the customer, hey, I'll come back in 3 days with the larger sample, that gives them 3 days to shop with somebody else, right? So if you can develop techniques, whether it's a room visualizer or other techniques to help them pick out what they're looking for on the spot, it's obviously better than waiting for 3 days to get the larger sample. Now, what I do like about the larger sample is it gives you an automatic way to get back into the house.
Yeah.
I think a big mistake that people make with larger samples, Shaw makes it really easy. The other suppliers do too. You can go to Shaw now, you can order a sample and you can have it sent directly to your customer's address. And wouldn't that be wonderful? Then you don't have to go back out and see them again. Except that I want to go back out and see them again. So I'm going to have the sample sent to me and use that as an excuse to get back into the house and try to close the sale.
And a lot of times we'll have come to a point where they really like us, they like the company, they like everything. It's just like, I'm not sure. A lot of times it's with those kinds of customers where you feel like you have it really locked down, and you go out and well, let's see a little bigger between them. And then we've had a couple where we've gone back and kind of worked through, what do you guys think of this or that? Because they trust us, our opinions on what looks good, but you kind of work with them and they enjoy that. So it's usually in those situations where you're really working the visual and what it looks like and what it looks like, this light, that light, and then they're like, I don't know. Well, it's hard to tell with these smaller pieces, but how do we get some bigger ones out here? So yeah.
Has anybody seen any tactics that might help even with the smaller samples?
I believe someone showed us something at perhaps the beginning of August by using picture matting.
Yeah, I have my picture matting here. These, if you look too close, you'll see where the cats like to chew on these, but these are the ones I like. So I just take picture matting and that way I can cut them into an L shape. And then when I have my sample board, I can hold my sample board up in front of the customers, and I'm not going to hold it up in front of the customers. I'm going to put it on the floor, but then I can separate out. God, this is hard to do one-handed. You'd think by now I'd figured this out. You can show the customer, this one or this one. It works better for the camera purposes if I do this with carpet. I've got a carpet board here. So you've got your sample board for the customer, and I can say, well, is it better, better number one or better number two? Better number one or better number two? And I like the black color because the black absorbs light and it gives the customer a better visual of what the sample actually looks like rather than using white. I used to just use white paper, and there's a franchisee in the Philadelphia area that told me, no, black is better. He came from an industry where color was a big deal, and they always used black to frame things. So that's when I switched from just using white sheets of paper to doing it with the photo mats that are black. And it seems to work much better. So I'll put photo mat paper.
That's pretty cool. I hadn't seen that.
And that's really simple. That's easy to find on Amazon, and it just comes in a square, but you cut it and make it into an L shape. And I've found that works really, really helpful. It's really helpful to help people pick a color when they see all these different colors on the board, and without you having to go back and get larger samples and stuff. What else? What other techniques or tactics have you guys seen to help a customer pick out the right color, pick out the right flooring?
I mean, if you've done like a really good, discovery and having a rapport with the customer, like if you had a customer choosing between one grade of carpet and the other, but I know that they continuously talked about their grandchildren and how they're always overplaying, just imagine Susie and Billy here overplaying on this plush carpet you know, if you can somehow tie an emotional tie to it, it's big in sales if there's an emotional aspect to it, if you've done enough good of a discovery.
I like it. Good. What else? What else have you guys seen?
Have them touch it, step on the hardwood or the carpet so they can feel.
Absolutely. Touch it, step on it, move it around the room for them, right? If they want to, if they're putting it in the basement, take it down to the basement. If they're putting it in the bedroom, take it into the bedroom. Let them see it in the light. I mean, they've got this, you've got the samples there. Get up and move around with it. Make this an interactive approach, right? Let them see what it's going to look like in different spaces in the house. Okay. All right. So step 6 leads to step 7, which is a little step we call the pre-close. Now, there's a couple of things that are going to happen sort of in the background between step 6 and step 7. The first thing is I want to confirm with the customer that this is actually the sample that they love, right? So I'm going to ask some kind of question about, you know, is this the one you love? So we picked out this beautiful carpet. They found this cashew color was the one for them. And so I'm going to simply ask them, okay, well, is this the one you love? Is this it? Is this the one you've fallen in love with this one? I'm just going to be bold and ask that question. So I want to confirm that this is actually the one that they absolutely love. Okay. Now, what do I need to do in the background? Think about this. What do I need to do right now in the background?
I would say get rid of the other samples.
Yeah, I'm going to move those out of the way. In the tablet, I need to change my rough draft price to an actual price. Okay. That's when this is where I'm going to use that little switcheroo button in the tablet. So the customer says, yes, this is it. This is absolutely the one that I love. I got to have it. This is the one. This is the one. This is the one. So I'm just going to take a moment. This literally, you have to practice this so that it only takes 30 seconds, right? But if you practice it, it should literally take you 30 seconds to go back to the proposal and to hit that button and to simply swap out my PG3 carpet. I'm swapping it out and I'm putting in First Sight color Arctic Fox. Okay, good. All right. So it should take all of about 30 seconds to make that swap. If you try to do it today, if you're not particularly comfortable with the tablet yet, it might take you 20 minutes. Okay, so this is something that you actually have to practice doing, okay, because it really shouldn't take that long. Okay, so in the background, so I'm getting the customer, yes, I absolutely love it, beautiful. And I'm going to use that as sort of a lead-in into step 7. Now, step 7 is a very simple step. It's a crucial step, I think. It's a crucial step, but it's a pre-close step. The pre-close, this is your, how do I say this? Well, what's the next thing? And then I'm going to come back. The next thing is the close. What does the customer finally get to see in step 8? After all this time, what does the customer finally get to see in step 8?
Price.
Price. Yeah, Andrea, before I move on.
Yes. Do we have always to show only one price, or maybe they are between two options and we can show them two options?
So let me come back to that question because I'm going to answer that, but let me come back to that.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Don't let me forget. So in step 8, they're going to finally see the price. Anybody Magic fans? Anybody like watching Magic? Okay. And you see, you see the assistant goes behind the curtain and then there's a big puff of smoke and the assistant disappears And now it's the magician that's behind the curtain, and the assistant is walking down from the upstairs balcony of the studio or whatever, right? It's the big switch, okay? Well, there's a big switch that's about to happen. This is a magic trick, and it happens every time you show somebody the price. So behind the curtain here, your customer is going to change. And they're either going to become a buyer or they're going to become a liar. And your customer is going to go through a metamorphosis right here when you show them the price. And they're either going to become a buyer or they're going to become a liar, one of the two. So when I ask the pre-close question, we got to come back to the pre-close. When I ask the pre-close question, this is the last chance for me to get an honest answer out of this person. Because we're going to get into the close, and then they're going to start doing a little dance, and we're going to have to figure out how to get them to quit dancing. And okay, so we're going to have to maneuver around them and all this stuff, and we're going to talk about that next week. But step 7 is the last chance that I have of getting them to actually answer a question honestly. So I'm going to simply ask this question. Other than price or payment, all right, now I want to slow down here. And I want to ask this question very cleanly so that there's no mistaking what I'm asking. If I ask the question too fast and the customer doesn't really hear the words, then it doesn't really help me. So my question is this: other than price or payment, by the way, have they seen the price yet? Not yet. Not yet. This is the last chance I have of them telling me the truth. Other than price or payment, would there be any reason we couldn't get your job started today? Now let that sink in for a minute. Other than price or payments, would there be any reason we couldn't get your job started today? So let me go back all the way back to week 1. What are the 4 reasons that people buy? We know the first one's the person, right? The second reason,
company, product, price.
Okay, so this is what I know. I know that we are right here. The customer doesn't realize that, but I know that that's where we are because I've got the map and I've been walking them down this path. What I would really, really like to be able to ask people, I'd just really like to be able to say, have I convinced you that I'm the right person to work with? Have I convinced you that we're the right company to work with? Have we shown you that this is the right product? So the only thing left is whether or not we get the price right. I would love to be that bold with people. The problem is I know if I ask them directly like that, I'm not going to get a straight answer. So what I'm really asking with this question is, have I shown you that I'm the right person, we're the right company? and that this is the right product for you. And so the only thing we have to work on next is the price. But I really can't ask it that way. So instead, I'm going to ask it this way. Other than price or payments, would there be any reason we couldn't get your job started today? So how is the customer going to answer this question? How could they answer it?
With an objection?
They could, right? So Dave, give me an objection. I'll ask you the question. Other than price or payments, would there be any reason we couldn't get your job started today?
Well, I need to check with my wife first about it.
Okay, good. So I need to check with my wife first. All right, so what does it tell me as I'm listening to this? What does that tell me that I could have done better?
Made sure
the wife is there.
Right.
In the pre-call.
So that gets me back to, okay, I need to practice that in a setup call because I didn't nail that. All right. What else could the customer say at this point?
I'm just getting quotes.
Right.
I'm just getting quotes.
I still need to get quotes. Okay. I still need to get quotes, right? I'm still looking at quotes. All right. So what is that telling me? That's telling me that there's something here. I don't know exactly what it is yet. Okay. But that's telling me that there's something. I haven't shown him that I'm the right person. I haven't shown him I'm the right company. I haven't shown him that I've got the right product for him. If he says he still wants to get quotes, he hasn't seen my price yet. I might be doing the whole house for $400, right? And he's telling me right now, well, I still want to get more quotes. I mean, in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, what do you want to get more quotes for? I haven't shown you my price yet, right? So this is why I'm saying this is the last opportunity for them to tell you the truth. So if they tell you right now, well, I still want to get more quotes, I have to look in the mirror and say, okay, there's something in these first three that I didn't quite nail, because what I really should get, if I've done everything up until this point well, what I really should get is, no, it really just comes down to the price. If I have convinced you, yeah,
they might have a option of checking with other competitors as well.
Well, they might, right? But if I've shown them, if I have shown, if I've come to your house and I have shown you, I've impressed you with my expertise and I've impressed you with my knowledge of the industry and how things are going to be installed. And so you've just come to trust me as a person and you feel like, yeah, I'm going to take care of you. And then I told you about the company and you were really impressed. And the company story that I gave, it answered a lot of your questions and you were concerned about dealing with contractors. And yeah, I don't know if I really want these people in my house. But you know what? After hearing about you guys and how you do business and what you do, yeah, I'm really, really convinced that you're the right company to work with. And then you showed me that hardwood, and my gosh, I fell in love with that hardwood. That's exactly what I wanted. That hardwood was absolutely perfect. It really does just come down to price. If you can give me a reasonable price, yeah, we can do business together. Right? That's essentially the conversation that we're having. It's just not that direct. So this question is so important because it's going to tell me, this question is going to tell me what the close is about to look like. Because if I get what's called a positive pre-close, in other words, the customer says it really just comes down to price, well then I'm walking into the close with a positive pre-close and I know what to do with. If they give me a negative pre-close, well, I still want to get some other estimates. I still want, I got other things. Okay, now what does that tell me? It tells me that I have messed something up back here. And that becomes an opportunity for me to practice and get better for the next one. It doesn't mean I'm not going to land this job. I still might land it. Okay, and we'll talk about what to do with that. But it's a whole lot better walking into the close having a positive pre-close rather than a negative pre-close. There's one other thing in the pre-close, and that is I'm going to give a commitment statement. And this is not word for word, but this commitment statement, I ask you, other than price or payment, would there be any reason we couldn't get your job started today? No, it really just comes down to price. Well, my commitment to you is I'm going to make sure that I do everything in my power to not let price or payment stand in the way of you getting the floors that you love and deserve. All right, now that's not a word for word. That's not a word for word question. It's not a word for word thing. You could say, hey, I promise to make sure that price doesn't get in the way of you getting these floors that you love. You might, you know, depending on who you are and who your customer is, you might say, hey, you know what? I'm going to do everything in my power to help you get these floors, whatever. It doesn't matter. You're making a commitment to the customer that you're going to help them. This is a little Easter egg that I'm going to use later if I need to. Okay. So in the background, the customer has found the product that they love. Step 6, they found the product that they absolutely love. So I'm going to ask, and you know what? Sometimes I'll ask sort of another question in here. This is going to get messy. I'll just ask them. Let's do it in a different color. Okay, so let's think about how this might sound. We picked the right color carpet. So is this the one that you absolutely love? Oh, yes, that is it. That's the one. I've been looking for that my whole life. Great. All right, so now what am I doing? I'm in the tablet. I'm doing my little switcheroo button, and I ask them, so before we go any further, do you have any questions about how we would do the job, or how we would install it, or what we would do? And oftentimes, if you ask the customer, do you have any additional questions? They'll look at you and they may say, well, how long is the job going to take? Or what are you going to do with the grandfather clock? Or what, you know, how are you going to protect my grandmother's vase, or whatever it is, right? Okay, good. So we can answer those questions and move forward. Now I have a question for you. Other than price or payment, would there be any reason we couldn't get your job started today? No, it really just comes down to price. Well, fantastic. I'm going to do everything in my power to not let price or payment stand in the way of you getting the floors that you love and deserve. All right. Questions?
Arlen?
Mhm.
Arlen, I have a quick question. Just from a pricing perspective, is it primarily that the customer, when you've had success in doing this, is it because they'll buy it that day because they just become very trusting in what you're proposing? Because I would think the average customer, or myself included, before I became more educated in this process, say, you know, they get a price and you say it's a reasonable price, but if they have no frame of reference to compare that to, how do they know it's reasonable? So is there always this intention that they have to get at least one more estimate to know if your estimate is actually reasonable?
So on average, these are not my statistics, but on average, people will get 1.2 quotes before making a decision.
Nice. Yeah.
Right.
So it's more about
yeah,
them
there's
trusting
going to be somebody that gets 2 or 3 quotes. I've had people that have gotten 8 quotes and they still pick me. Okay, good. I'm not afraid of other quotes. So if they want to get another quote, that's great. Go get another quote, and we'll, you know, now we'll get into the follow-up game. But I also know that, and people don't know this until they've had a chance to go through the process. I get it. But I also know that flooring is very competitive, and you guys are going to write competitive estimates, and the pricing that you get from your suppliers is competitive. I know that you guys are going to struggle. I mean, just mentally, everybody does. You're going to have this mental barricade about quoting something at a 50% margin. And yet I can prove to you that Empire, Home Depot, Lowe's, Lumber Liquidator, they're all quoting somewhere between 53 and 58% margin based on our cost, not based on, they may be even higher than that based on their cost, right? So I know that those guys, as competitive as we think they are, they're still quoting at a margin that's higher than what you're going to have a struggle quoting with.
Arlen?
So it's not the margin. Yeah, Karen.
We had, we just did the mystery shop. We had Luna come in, which is Empire, right? They quoted me $40,000 to it was my house, right? Remove all the flooring and put in one surface. And then 3 days later, I got the phone call and they were willing to, by the time she left the house, she was down to about 24. And I got the call on Saturday and they were down to 16.
Yeah. So, I mean, think about that, right? 40 grand and magically it's 16. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely, now the 16 is probably, if I had to guess, the 16 is probably at a 32% margin. It's probably 30 to 35% margin. You know, they've tried to get it now so low that it's going to undercut anybody else that might have shown up, but they're not paying commission to anybody at that point, you know, and there's going to be some cost cutting that happens in that job. All right. Now, let me get to Andrea's question. And walk through this with me. Andrea, we've looked at we've looked at some hardwood floors, right? How many boards did we look at? We looked at 3 or 4 hardwood boards.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, so when did you get to see them? You actually got to see them over here. You got to see them during step 6. So I showed you 3 or 4 hardwood boards. And out of those 3 or 4 hardwood boards, you found one that you absolutely love, right? That's the one. Where is it? It's right here. This is the one you fell in love with. You didn't realize it at the time, but you fell in love with Lakeway. Perfect. So this is the one, and you found the perfect color. You've been waiting all your life for it. Okay. So now you have found the perfect one that you love. What do you want to know next?
The price.
The price. Of course. Okay. So this is why you take option 1 and you follow option 1 all the way through to the price.
Mm-hmm.
So you've absolutely fallen in love with this hardwood. Okay, well, time out. I know you love that one, but here, I've got a laminate board I want you to see. Well, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Right? So what we're going to do is we're going to take our option 1. This is the hardwood that you fell in love with, and we're going to go ahead and work it all the way through, other than price or payment, and we're going to show the customer the price for option 1.
Yes.
Now, if the customer says, wait a minute, $20,000 to do this hardwood, that's way too much money. I can't do that. Okay, good. Now I can go back and I can pick up option 2.
Yep.
And we can pick a color and everything that you love, and I can work this all the way through, and I can show you the price for option 2.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
But it doesn't make sense to say, okay, here's option 1 and here's a hardwood, and you've fallen in love with this hardwood. Okay, time out. I know you're in love, but let me show you that in case you don't like this guy later, let me show you another guy that you can fall in love with. But it doesn't make any sense. This is the one that you fall in love with. Here's the price for that one. If now the price is a barrier, okay, good. Let's go take a look at another board. Mike.
Yeah, I had a question on, suppose the customer says, hey, look, I've got a budget of, $15,000 for this. Do you dial your options so that, your option 1 would come in at their budget, or where would you position 3 options if they said, I got 15,000 and I can't really spend any?
I'd try to respect their budget.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%. I try to respect their budget. I think if they tell me 15 is my budget and I come in at 30 or even 20, it looks like I'm not paying attention to them, right? If I come in and it's 14,998, then that looks a little suspect, right?
Yeah.
So it might be that my first option is 16,000. It's just a little bit more, but I wanted you to see what this looked like. And then maybe my second option is 12,000. Okay. It's not that I'm trying to stretch. It's not that I'm trying to stretch their budget. That's not the point. It just so happens that this one's around 16. But if I price up the options and all of a sudden this is a $20,000 floor, well, no, this isn't an option for this customer. It's way too far over the budget.
Okay.
Good. All right, questions
So,
about this? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, so a question then. Before we show the customer the product, is it maybe a good idea to ask what is their budget? So before we go to the van, we know what product to show them if we ask their budget first?
So there's different opinions about that. Okay, I normally don't ask them what their budget is. I normally don't, because I don't want it to feel like I'm trying to fit a floor into a number, or that I'm trying to stretch my flooring price to get to their number, right? I normally don't ask for a budget. But I will tell you that there are other people that do. There's design associates and franchisees across the country that do use that. They won't ask for a budget per se, but they might do. I mean, I like this question. I don't use it, but I like this question. Sometimes they'll say, hey, you know what? When you go dress shopping for a wedding dress, there's the really expensive rack, there's the medium rack, and there's the less expensive rack. I just want to know, which rack are we looking at? I'm not trying to get an exact number, but I want to kind of know, where are you? I think it's a great question. I don't personally use it, but there's nothing wrong with it. Yeah, Mutu.
So what would be the difference between the options? Is there any ballpark number, like 5% difference, something like that?
Yeah, so your options, these should be a 20 or 25% gap. There should be about a 20 or 25% gap between the options.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Overall flow up until the close. I guess you could print this out on legal size paper. Overall flow, that's what your overall flow looks like up until the close. And next week, we're going to get into the close. Which is exactly where we've been this whole time. All right, so what's going to happen next week? And by the way, I'll send you these slides just so that you've got this, the pre-close and the commitment statement. So for next week, what does next week look like? Because next week is very different. You should be able to deliver your company story in less than 10 minutes. Okay, I'm going to give you some questions here to memorize. We're going to go through them in great detail on Tuesday. So if they feel weird to you, if you don't like them, it's okay. You don't have to like them yet. You will learn to like them, but I know the third question of the Walk of Life always throws people in the beginning. It's okay. It's a great question, but anyway, you'll see in just a moment. Go ahead and get finished with all your floor use stuff. Keep getting those ride-alongs. So what are these weird questions that I'm talking about? All right, so there's a technique, and we're going to go through this technique on Tuesday. There's a bridge the gap question, which I'll explain what I mean by that. Is this more than you thought it would be? Okay, it's a simple question. It doesn't have to be word for word. You might ask, is this price, how does this price feel to you, or whatever. We'll go through that. But then these are the 3 walk of life questions that we're going to spend some time around. How much did you think a project like this would cost? Now that you see what we do and how we do it, can you see why this would be more than you expected? And then the third question, which I know is going to raise some eyebrows today, but on Tuesday, we'll smooth them back out. Now that you've seen the price, how long would it take for you to come up with the rest of the money? And I know when you look at this question in isolation, it feels a little like it's pushy. It really isn't, and we'll talk through that when we go through this next week. All right, so what does next week look like? And I will send you these slides so that you have this. What does next week look like? Well, you and I are going to spend a lot of time together next week. You've got a 4-day virtual inspired sale class, Tuesday through Friday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we are going to be together from 11 a.m. until about 4-ish. So 4:30, 4:15, maybe 3:45. We'll see when it makes sense to cut things off. but you're going to be with me from 11 until about 4 o'clock. Now, yes, we will take a break for lunch. We will take breaks to use the restroom and get refreshments and whatever. So we're not going to spend 5 solid hours on Zoom together, but we will have some breaks in there, but you need to reserve that time for me. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you're going to be with me from 11 to 4. After 4 o'clock, and of course, these are all Eastern time, after 4 o'clock Eastern time, and I don't care what time it is, if you've got an appointment with a customer, good, go run the appointment. Design associates, you're going to do mock appointments with your franchise owners. And that means them doing the little competency assessment form for you, okay? That competency assessment form is very, very important next week. Franchise owners, those of you that are brand new franchise owners, you're going to be paired with ops coaches, and you guys are going to do small group practice with ops coaches, ideally no more than 3 or 4 people in a group, so that you can really get some focused practice time with an ops coach. You won't be with the same ops coach every day. You probably won't be with the same people every day. I'm going to intentionally mix it up so that you get to hear different people do different things. At the end of each night, if you're a design associate and you ran a customer appointment where the franchise owner gave you an assessment form, if you're a design associate and your franchise owner, you didn't have a customer appointment, so instead you did a mock appointment, or if you're a franchise owner and you had an ops coach, at the end of every night, I expect to get an email from either you or your franchise owner or your coach that has that competency model completed. So if they only graded you on one section, that's fine. Just send me that section. That competency model I need to get every night. You're going to find that I get up extremely early in the morning. And the first thing that I'm going to do on Wednesday morning is I'm going to look through all of the evaluations that were sent to me Tuesday night. And I'm going to read through them because I've got like 110 different exercises that we can pull from. And I'm going to pull the right ones to make sure that we're covering the thing where there's gaps. If your franchise owner says, oh man, my guy is perfect, he gets all 5s. Well, that tells me I don't really need to work with you. There's nothing to improve. So actually getting all 5s isn't helpful. It's when your franchise owner is honest enough with you to say, you know what, this is an area that needs work. Okay, good. Then we know what we need to work on the next day. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are going to look very, very similar to one another. You're with me from 11 to 4. Then you're either with your franchise owner or you're with an ops coach after that sometime, and I get a competency model back. Friday, it's the same thing, but the timing is different. So Friday, you're going to be with me from 11 to 2. You're going to go do this evaluation or practice from 2 to 4, and then we're going to have a final closing, which I promise will be like a 30 or 45-minute closing at 4 o'clock. All of this will be on Zoom, the exact same Zoom that you've been on with me the whole time. And all those invites should be on your calendar already, except for the ops coach ones. And those ops coaches will be sending you those no later than Monday. You'll get those showing up on your calendar. Right now, you've just got a placeholder there. Questions about next week?
When it says DA's full run through with your franchise owner, are those like mock appointments, like rehearsals, or actual appointments that you're running with them shadowing you?
Well, it'd be nice if it was a real customer appointment.
Okay.
That would be the best. If you don't have a customer appointment, then do a mock appointment.
Okay.
All right. Yes.
Who will be the ops coach?
I will assign that later this week, and I will send that out to the ops coaches, and they will send them to you. Okay. So it could be Jackie, it could be Grant, it could be Joe, it could be Alan, it could be Ron, it might be Nathan. There's several ops coaches, and I've got to marry up their schedules next week with this and make some assignments. The reality is it doesn't really matter who it is. It's one of the ops coaches, and all of us have been trained on this, so it's fine.
Okay.
Part of working in the ops department with Floor Coverings International. I mean, I've done, I don't know, thousands of these, but even if it's a brand new ops coach that's coming into the company, they have to learn the inspired sales system. They actually have to go out and land jobs. It's not enough just to know this theoretically. They actually have to go out and land jobs. So that's part of the training that we go through.
Okay, thanks.
Good, Mame.
Yes, my question is not part of the next week, but is the carpets. I see like 91 on the list. Do we have to fill out all the 91 on Excel?
Yes. All right. So if you're catching up on this after the fact, here's your webinar makeup word or makeup phrase, green, white, orange. And with that, I will bid you guys a great afternoon, and I'm looking forward to working with you guys next week. Should be a fun week.
Thank you, Harlan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Harlan.